Hi, I am attorney Rejoice Abihano, and tonight we are on an exciting topic in the adoption, which are the expectation versus reality. Now, in adoption, there will always be that expectation versus reality. The adopting parents will always have the desire of having a little angel in the family, or should we say, a bundle of joy. But what if that little angel turned out to be the little monster? Or that bundle of joy turned out to be the bundle of grief? Watch this. So my friends, reality bites. What if this happens in the family? What is then the remedy of the adopters? Number two, what is the remedy of the adoptee in case the adopter turned out to be abusive parents? But before we are going to discuss all this, we will have to look into the effects of adoption. What are the effects? What are the legal effects of adoption? Number one, on parental authority. On parental authority, all parental authorities are now vested on the adopters. The relationship between the adoptee and the biological parents are already severed. Therefore, parental authorities are now vested on the adopter. Second, on legitimacy. The moment adoption takes place, the adoptee is now raised to the level of a natural, legitimate child of the adopter. So for all intents and purposes, the adoptee is now a natural, legitimate child of the adopter. On succession, now Section 16 of Republic Act 8552 is very specific that in case of succession and in the event there is an adoption, the adopter and the adoptee shall have reciprocal rights of succession. In other words, what the law is saying is that the adoptee can inherit from the adopter and the adopter can inherit from the adoptee. Part of this on succession is the right to representation. Because what if the adopter predeceased the adoptee? Can the adoptee has the right, or can the adoptee represent the adopter in succession on the inheritance of the ascendants of the adopter? Republic Act 8552 is very specific on this aspect. Unfortunately, there is no right of representation granted on the adoptee. Why? Because in adoption, that relationship is exclusive only between the adopter and the adoptee. In other words, that relationship does not extend to the ascendants of the adopter and to the descendants of the adopter. Now, one more thing on succession. Can the adoptee inherit from his or her biological parents? Now, the law is very clear on this. The adoptee cannot anymore inherit from his or her biological parents except on testate succession. In other words, the biological parents, if in the event that the biological parents executed a last will and testament, thereby giving portion of it from the inheritance to the adoptee, that is the only way. That is the only time that the adoptee can inherit from his or her biological parents. Now we are on the most exciting part in our topic, and that is rescission of adoption. Can the adoptee seek judicial rescission of the adoption? Interestingly, Section 19 of Republic Act 8552 lay down the grounds where the adoptee may seek judicial rescission of the adoption. Number 1, maltreatment. Number 2, attempt to life. Number 3, sexual assault or violence. And number 4, abandonment and failure to comply with parental obligations. Now, these are the only instances where the adoptee may seek judicial rescission of the adoption. The happening of any of these incidents, maltreatment for example, whether physical or verbal abuse, attempt to life, of course we know that an attempt to life, there must be an overt act in committing this particular crime. Then sexual assault or violence and abandonment and failure to comply with parental obligation, the happening of any of this ground entitles the adoptee to seek judicial rescission. Now, who may file the judicial rescission? Can the adoptee himself or herself file the same in court? Yes. If the adoptee is already of legal age, he or she may file the judicial rescission, the petition for judicial rescission. In the event the adoptee is still a minor, the DSWD can file for and in behalf of the adoptee. Now, can the adopter also seek judicial rescission of the adoption? This is very interesting because while this right is granted on the adoptee, can the adopter also seek judicial rescission of the adoption? Interestingly, under the old civil code and was also copied in the Presidential Decree 603, eventually translated also in our family code, all these laws allow the adopter to seek judicial rescission of the adoption. However, when Republic Act 8552 was enacted into law, all these were deleted. At present, the adopter may not seek for judicial rescission of the adoption. The reason of the law is that it is for the best interest of the adopted child. However, the adopter, in case of change relationship, or the adopted child turned out to be so different and commit acts which are inimical to the interest and health of the adopter at this time has been granted by law to disinherit the adoptee. But that is the only extent that the adopter can avail of in case of acts committed by the adoptee against the adopter. Now, an interesting case came out because in this particular case, the adoption took place under the old civil code. And then it was processed and the adoption was granted. And remember that under the old civil code, the adopter has the right to seek judicial rescission of the adoption. As years passed, the relationship turned sour between the adopter and the adoptee, and now the adopter seeks for judicial rescission of the adoption. Question was, can the adopter seek judicial rescission of the adoption in the passage of Republic Act 8552? Now, this was the issue that was brought before the Supreme Court. The petitioner argued that, hey, our right is already vested. That right to rescind, to seek for rescission of the adoption was already vested because the adoption was procured or was granted under the old civil code. And therefore, having that vested right, it cannot be removed from them to seek for judicial rescission of the adoption. The Supreme Court, in denying the petition, said, while adoption has often been referred to in the context of a right, the privilege to adopt is itself not naturally innate or fundamental, but rather a right merely created by statute. It is a privilege that is governed by the state's determination on what it may deem to be for the best interest and welfare of the child. Matters relating to adoption, including the withdrawal of the right of an adopter to nullify the adoption decree, are subject to regulation by the state. Concomitantly, a right of action given by statute may be taken away at any time before it has been exercised. And finally, we are on the effects of rescission. What are the effects in the event the court grants judicial rescission of the adoption? Now, here are the effects. Number one, parental authority of the adopter is terminated. Number two, parental authority of the biological parents is restored. Number three, legal custody of the adopter is, of course, terminated. Number four, legal custody by the biological parents, if known, of course, or if unknown, the DSWD is also restored. Next, the amended birth certificate pursuant of the adoption shall be cancelled, and the original birth certificate pursuant of the adoptee shall be restored. And last, successional rights. The successional rights of the adoptee to his or her biological parents is also restored. But only at the date of judgment of rescission. Meaning, those rights already vested prior to the grant of the judicial rescission must be respected. In other words, what is contemplated by law? If in case the biological parent or a biological parent had already died, and then inheritance had already passed to the heirs of that biological parent, and subsequently a judicial rescission was granted on an adoptee, can the adoptee still ask his or her share from the other siblings of his biological parents? The answer is no. That has to be respected because there is no retroactive effect on the grant of judicial rescission. Friends, thank you for joining me. And my companion will report, Attorney Pasis will report on discrimination and single parent adoption. So stay tuned. Thank you.